You don't need to generate $50 million pipeline like we used to do in corporate. You actually need to generate 3 clients that can pay 5, 10K a month, and you actually end up making more money. The day that switch happened for me and I was able to help other people do it, it changed everything for them.
And thinking about how we're going to kick this off, I was super excited to see a post from my friend Sangram Vajre, who posted about a new initiative he's working on around freedom. And that word just popped on the feed for me, and just thinking through what a powerful kind of construct this idea is of how we can unlock freedom in our careers. And whether you are a W-2 carrying employee and operator in-house in a business and you're wondering, what does my next kind of career stage look like? Or you might be own your own consulting practice. You might be a fractional leader, and you're thinking through, how do I kind of balance work and life, or think through this, I think, the false way of thinking about it would be a trade-off, but truly finding a way to thrive and flourish in an environment that can actually create freedom for us. So I've known Sangram for years as a friend. I'm kind of embarrassed that we're catching up on a live stream versus catching up on a phone call or a text message. So this will be raw for everyone. I think a lot of folks here know Sangram. He's the co-founder, CMO of Pardot, sold obviously to Salesforce, co-founder of Terminus as well, and is currently the CEO of GTM Partners. And so if you'll join me in bringing and welcoming Sangram to the show. Welcome, bud. How are you?
Oh man, it's so good. Let's catch up. Tell me about your kids. Let's tell me about what's going on, and we should just do a normal catch up.
We would lose everyone, I think, if we did it, but we would have a great time, and that's the important part. No, so it's so good to see you and catch up, and it feels like it has been a while since we've caught up. There's that, I think Audience Plus was a part of one of the Go-to-Market Partners road shows, and it was like my second time ever in Atlanta, which was really exciting. So I got a chance to meet your beautiful family as well. So that was awesome.
Oh, that was such an awesome time. And I remember just coming to the Golden Hour. Like, I love that you've continued this brand, because I was at the inaugural Golden Hour event, and that was so fantastic to be part of. And I think you had more cameras than the people. I remember that one. You had like a huge different way of producing it, almost documentary and real life kind of thing. And I love that you continue to bring new conversations into the marketplace.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Well, look, I'd love to just get, like, I think as I think about just sort of the state of the go-to-market professional, the go-to-market executive, I would argue you have a vantage point here on the industry that many do not. And so I'm curious. I want to get to this idea of freedom and this new initiative that you're working on. But I'm curious, in your conversations with go-to-market leaders, what's the current state of the profession today? How are they doing? And I mean that both in the kind of professional work context, and to the extent you have some of these anecdotes, or just maybe a high level, like, how are they doing mentally and emotionally with all of the change that's happening in the industry?
Yeah, I just wrote down, because there are like really 2 or 3 big shifts that are shaping our industry and our profession, everything. The first is this incredible rise of service as a software, which is a big shift that we have seen, and we've written a lot of research around it. Because the days of somebody buying a $100,000 software, wanting 2 or 3 people really good at it, then hiring those, so that's like a $500,000 investment, and then signing a 3-year contract for that technology. As I'm saying that, it almost sounds ridiculous to think about, but that's the industry that you and I have grew up. That's what we sold. That's what Terminus, Gainsight, we all did that day in and day out. And I think those days are far gone. That most people are not going to do that. The pricing models have changed from not even seat model or anything like that. It's like usage and credits. And it's a new language for most of us who have grown up in this industry for the last 20 years. So I feel like the biggest shift, the number one shift of the 3 or so, is this rise of services as a software, meaning people would use technology in the back end, not necessarily the front end. People would be buying outcomes, and then how you get to outcome using a set of technology or services or AI or fractionals like that. All of those things are just a way to get there. So
Mm.
as a classic example, I think if you're somebody were to implement ABM today, in 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would say, oh, go, here's a way to do this thing, here's a strategy, but go deploy Terminus or demand base or
Right.
six sense, and then go do it. Today, I would say, no, just go and get an agency for $10,000 a month. They would actually get these softwares, whichever works and have the best thing to do it, and implement it, and they will be responsible for outcomes.
Yeah.
And anyone would rather pay 10K a month. That will be like 120K a year,
Yeah.
less money than a full-time employee. And so that's why it's shifting. That's what's impacting personally to people. It's like, wait a
Mm.
minute, I thought W2 is the way to go, but now people are looking at me differently. Or do I need to go agencies? So technology is having a moment
Yeah.
of realization, and services are catching on. So I'll pause there because I want to get your
Yeah.
perspective, because we come from that background.
Well, I'm just wondering if all of, like, just zooming out from that is like a perfect example of just change and practices that we built our careers on now all of a sudden are either changing, or maybe not in that case, but others like no longer relevant, no longer effective. You have kind of playbooks being rewritten in real time around what new looks like and what is working. And that's a lot for someone to process. Someone, and this isn't, I think for most people, this isn't a hobby. This is our livelihood. This is how we make
Yeah.
money and provide for our families. And so the idea of like losing sort of grasp with some, you know, workflow, whatever it is, like a way of working that we've grown accustomed to, I think comes with a very big emotional and mental toll, I'd imagine.
No doubt, no
I'm
doubt.
feeling it.
And if you add to that anxiety and the challenge that we all have, is a lot of folks grew up in focusing on inbound and
Yeah.
outbound and all those funnels, like the serious decisions waterfall and the bow tie, like all of them make sense because you can actually put something in that bucket. And
Yeah.
then when we saw this whole rise of other go to market motions, so not only you have to figure out inbound, outbound, but PLG, then community led, event led, partner led. So now you've had 6 different types of go to market motions. And our research shows that most successful companies, they actually have at least 3 or 4 of these go to market motions that they have to do. So I imagine the stress that people are feeling is because they have to now simultaneously try different motions with different personas and then report on them, but each one of these motions have different metrics, the way people actually you should measure it, but you're
Yeah.
measuring it the same old way that you have been taught, and that's not working. So how do you put an MQL on a community led or a PLG, like how, so people are like struggling with old metrics, old dogs, old guards, and new
Yeah.
things, and new motions, and just trying to make a sense of it is already overwhelming. And I think that's another big thing that I think everybody's recognizing.
Totally. Well, I want to talk about your post from the other week, where you introduced this idea of freedom, and we'll get into the program itself. But I'm curious, like your word choice around
Yeah,
freedom. Like, what does freedom mean
yeah,
in this context? And if you're maybe a professional that's kind of dealing with all of this change, like what's your interpretation of why freedom is sort of the um, desired outcome or an attractive kind of concept for folks?
yeah. Well, first of all, this is the year I also became a United States
That's
citizen.
right. I saw that. Yeah,
Right.
congrats. It's
So
amazing.
thank you. And I've been in the US. Most people is surprised because they know me long enough to know, like, wait, what does that even mean? Like, how you were not? Like, that surprised a lot of people. But that it took 20 years for me to be a
Wow.
citizen. So for me, I understand the point of it and the process of it, and I recognize what it means to
Mm,
be a part of it. So I
it's
have a
beautiful.
perspective on freedom that is very much rooted into what I'm experiencing literally as an individual,
Wow.
as a family, and as a citizen of United States. And in that context, I'm also at a place in my life where I'm feeling like, man, I've built a couple of companies. I have spent a lot last 30 years building different things. And now, what does my life look like? And what am I really wanting? And
Yeah.
ultimately, I feel right now with kids, family, and experience, what I want is freedom. Not
Mm,
freedom to not go on a beach and just sip on a drink and just look at the sunset every day. I think I'll be horrible
yeah.
at that. But the freedom to do what I want to do, the things I've learned, to implement it and provide value in a way that actually serves and values the experience I have. And too
Yes.
many people right now, I feel like they are going from one job to another and then going through the same grind of unlimited, signing up for 40 hours, working 80 hours, and
Yeah.
recognizing that, man, this is the value is still just not there. I'm doing the same stuff and I feel less valued, and I spend more and make less, and my value is getting lower and lower. And there's a level at which I feel I'm starting to recognize that the value after 10, 20, 30 years of experience that you provide should be so much greater. As a result of that, you should actually make more money.
Mm,
But it's not just make more money, but you actually have more time in your day to do the things you want to do and the way you want to do it. So the freedom is really the type of life you want to live.
yes.
And a classic example is like I never believed in a work life balance as a concept. I
Yeah.
always think that it didn't connect for me. Maybe because being an immigrant, and like, it's my first place I came. I'm gonna grind. I'm gonna work.
Yeah.
Um, but the work life balance at this stage of my life is that if I get inspired and want to work on something Saturday morning, I want to do that. And if I
Yeah.
need to go take a Friday off because I want to do other things, and then I should be able to do that. So
Yeah.
though that the choice, the ability to make a choice and be able to do that is what I think the idea of
Yeah.
freedom.
So good. And something that it's been really interesting in my own journey here, at least over the last year, looking at a calendar, 10 months or so. Um, because I found like in my story, I kind of got on the treadmill of like your career path, and you start,
Yeah,
as a manager, a director, whatever, and you work your way up. And for me, speaking super candidly, like founding the technology startup was like that. This was my moment, right? I felt like my
yeah,
whole career was building to starting Audience Plus, and 3 years of you're a founder, so you understand, like 3 years of just like the hardest, like professional effort that went into it, but also emotional toll. Weirdly, we had a major personal crises happen across
mm,
in that time horizon. Um, Unfortunately, it wasn't the outcome that on the other side of all of that effort
mm,
that we were hoping for. And so I found myself last October basically being like, okay, now what? Do
yeah,
I go get another CMO job? Do I go start a company again? And be like, I tell you, there's probably 100,000 things I do differently now.
yeah,
But I'm exhausted, and there's like real trauma that I am still processing coming on the other side of that. And I found myself, I fell into a couple of consulting projects
mm,
that I've never done before. And I don't
mm,
know, like, what is this kind of 1099 life? And I have found that while I'm still, now kind of sharpening my focus and conviction around what's coming next, that the last 10 months, although very healthy from a processing of corporate trauma, corporate and personal trauma, this taste of freedom is really, as you've defined it, has been a bit of my experience too. Like still learning, still figuring it
yeah,
out, but the ability to be a present father, the ability to have some freedom of location. I'm still working quite a
yeah,
bit,
yeah,
but there's something about that I think is really attractive. I mean, something that's the understatement of the century. That is very attractive. But I feel like if you're not me, if you are, let's say, watching this and you are like that whole thing is really attractive. But I'm a W-2 employee. I'm in
yeah,
house. I'm an operator. I don't know that I can take that leap yet. One of the things you've said is actually this might be the best time for you to
yeah,
take the leap, to become a fractional leader. And so I was hoping you could unpack a little bit of
yeah,
why is that? Why is now the best time for this?
yeah. So one, with like, we're a $6 million business in the last 3 years, and it's really, now it's me, Brian. We have a couple of executive assistant and a whole bunch of tech we use, but that's a bit, that's it. And I
Mm.
use a lot of fractional help to write GTM Monday research. I have somebody who does, when we get new work that we want to do, we will essentially, we have a marketplace and we will hire somebody from that. So
Mm.
now I'm not running payroll anymore. I'm running the business. And I feel like I'm getting a better job. I'm doing a better job of deciding what to work on. And as opposed to when I had a whole team to support, like I will just do whatever it takes to support the payroll. As
Yeah.
opposed to now, I'm doing the reverse of it. For people who are moving from this to this, the biggest shift that I think has happened is that with everything going on with AI, everything going on with just economically, every organization is asking, every board that I'm on and every CEO that I'm talking to asking the same questions. Do I need all the people? I mean, it's hard. It's going to be sounding hard to it. Do I need all the, like, the top executives in the company at the level that they are? Do I really need to pay 500K to each one of them executives? And as you
Mm.
get to a certain point in life, when you're making 200 plus 250 plus, you always have a target on your back, because that's a big expense when you add healthcare
Right.
and all of those things to it. On the flip side of it, here's the interesting thing part, which I learned, is that if you're an individual with, let's say, 20 years of experience in legal tech, I'll use that example because one of the certified partners we have is Lydia, who has been a CMO in legal tech for 20 years. And so now she's a CMO for only legal tech companies. So what happens is legal
Mm.
tech companies come to her all the time now because she has branded herself as a legal tech CMO as opposed to any fractional CMO. So
Cool.
as a result of that, she needs only 3 clients who pay her 10K a month.
Right.
And she can work 2 days a week or a day and a half a week, and she's going to make 30K at least on a regular basis. You really need less client. You don't need to generate $50 million pipeline like we used to do in corporate. You
Yeah.
actually need to generate 3 clients that can pay 5, 10K a month, and you actually end up making more money. That switch, the day that switch happened for me and I was able to help other people do it, it changed everything for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah is another one, right? Like who was a CMO at 4 different companies before, but she would just do year and a half of hard grind, and then she would just, she's like, why did I know all the things to do? And she's like, what if I could do all that stuff now, to your point, with all the experience in a day and a half. So the CEOs are looking to get, at for the fraction of the cost, can I get fraction of the time of an executive? There is
Yeah.
a real math equation going on. And when you're an executive with all the technology and all that stuff, like you could, Anthony, today go in a 10 $20 million startup company, and if you're there just for a day and a half, you're going to contribute so much to that company. You don't really need there to be 5 days a week.
Right.
In a day and a half with strategic guidance, your own frameworks and your point of view, you can say, here's what we need to do. Here are a few fractionals who are going to execute on it. And every week, if you spend 8 to 10 hours in that company, that should be truly enough. It's like, the reason we send our kids to school for 8 hours is not because they have 8 hours of schoolwork. It's because we
Mm.
need 8 hours away from the kids. The work is actually 2 hours or 3 hours, if
Totally.
you really actually practically look at it. So same thing is with work. We have signed up for 40 hours because we think 40 hours is the work we need, but in
Right.
reality we don't, especially as an executive. So I think there is
Yeah.
a mindset shift happening right now economically, where CEOs are saying, I need to figure out what we need to do for fraction of the cost in fraction of the time. Can I get somebody who's expert in my industry, who I don't have to explain the business model or any of that, but they know what I need to do and they can tell me what to do, and then we can deploy those using fractional or people or technology or whatever, or maybe people who can be full time, but they don't need to be executives in the
Yeah.
company 24/7 in every single meeting. That shift is just happening in the marketplace. So if people like it or not, want it or not, this is happening.
It's happening.
And what I'm excited about is like, well, what if you're proactive about that? What if you actually figure out how to do this thing and and start leaping in that direction a little bit? Because if you are in your 40s and above, this is just going to happen to you. And it's literally the best time. The reason I say that is because at that time you have signed up for 40 hours and worked 80 hours. At that time,
Mhm.
you probably have an older kids that you need to kind of take care of. At this time, you probably have the most excitement and energy and understanding and connecting the dots kind of thing. So for the next 10 years of your life, you really need to be saying, how can I do what I know for 10, 20, 30, 40 companies and experience and think about the impact you can create, as opposed to trying to get a W-2 job and thinking like that's your mission in life.
So good, man. How I'm curious because the most folks know go-to-market partners predominantly, at least you guys do a lot of things,
Yeah.
but as a research kind of firm, what talk about the offering, talk about,
Yeah.
what you and Brian have built here, and, give, how can folks, um, who are interested in the topic kind of learn more about effectively how to take this leap?
Yeah. Oh, we so this is there's a quick story here.
Yeah.
Early last year, we found out, Anthony, several people just using our research and building a book of business around it. They will use the
Oh,
15
interesting.
go-to-market problems. They will use the operating system. We will get a call saying, "Hey, we actually did this 8-hour workshop on this thing, and we just have a question or two." We're like, "We didn't make any money on that. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?" And then we saw some people using it the wrong way because they didn't have all the insights of it. So we saw almost on a weekly basis, Brian and I, one of us would get some notes from somebody using our or putting a screenshot. And especially maybe because we did so many road shows and we taught in so many
Hmm.
different places, people just really used it and started to make much of it. And we write GTM Monday, which is such an open research node. People can
Yeah.
download stuff from there. And we realized that, oh, people are already using it. And instead of sending a cease and desist letter, we were like, well, what if we actually enable these people to use it the right way?
Mm.
What if we actually gave them our funnel? Our whole entire $6 million business is built on one assessment. That's it. We did one assessment called go to market assessment that's based on the Move book. And whenever people take, every day there are 20 to 30 companies take it. When they take it, we have a follow up, and then they reach out to us like, hey, we want to do this with, can you help us figure this part out? So that's how we have built our entire advisory and research business. So we're like, we can white label this assessment and give it to these
Mm.
people so they can create their own funnel. We can give them and make them a GTMO certified partner so they can actually say, not be like, oh, I do fractional work. No, no, we will help them niche down, do coach them in the first 30 days, like Lydia, to like, no, you're for private equity, you're good at financial services, you are for bigger companies, you're for smaller, like all every CMO has, after 10, 20 years, you figure out you've done something very specific. You just don't know. It's almost
Yeah.
marketers are the worst marketers of themselves. So
Of
so you
themselves.
gotta you gotta you need some help around that, right? So
Yeah.
we are recognizing and helping people do that, make sure that they understand what the niche they want to do, give all of our frameworks so they don't have to start from scratch. We
Yeah.
give them license our funnel so they can actually they don't have to create their own assessment. We spend like $200,000 on building that
Oh,
assessment
wow.
and all with it. So we are literally white labeling it. So now they can use our assessment to do that. So as a result of that, they're out of the get go, they're able to set meetings with people based on those, because we're not necessarily trying to teach them how to do the work. They already know, they have 20 years of
Yeah.
experience. We are helping them everything around the business so they can actually transition from a W-2 to 1099 in a meaningful way. And
Yeah.
of all things, Anthony, guess what? The most important thing I do, and in this process, Brian and I get to do, is helping with mindset. Uh,
Interesting.
that is nothing more, the stuff, the difference between people who are super successful as this and not is the mindset. Somebody is just all in, get certified in the next day, they are already sending the Move books, doing the following the funnel process that we have built. They are seeing meetings, and or again, they need only 3 or 4 clients to
Yeah.
actually switch their entire business, and it's been fun to watch.
That's incredible. Yeah. Cause I think that I understand the mindset of like, I don't know how to get started. Like, I like the idea of this, but to your point, how do I market myself? How do I actually generate clients? You guys talk about this in the content, but in some cases, this is a model that could be bumpy in terms of maybe a 3 month engagement where there's like feast and famine. And so,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that plan accordingly? These are the big questions I think that often folks wrestle with. So, it sounds like an incredible resource. Um, the other thing I feel like is, a lot of CMOs in particular. I know looking beyond into the broader go-to-market team. I
Yeah.
think a lot of folks have application to this, but the world that I know well, these are folks who are evaluating their next move in this
Yep.
brave new world that we're living in. And so there's like, do we go into an early stage kind of AI company? Do we go into kind of a mid stage business where, folks are reinventing themselves around AI? They've been around for a while. Um, do we go into this public kind of, company, kind of maybe not take the number one spot, but maybe the number two or three? Or do I go into this contract, kind of this 1099 world? And the topic that comes up quite a bit is, well, what's future proof? Because I want to
Yeah.
hedge my risk here. I'm afraid of that AI experiment that I just joined failing, and then now I'm figuring out what's next, or the cap table of that mid-stage company not leading to a lucrative outcome, or whatever it is, or like, I don't believe this, but or the CMO role like going away completely, and like it's all just a
Yeah.
bunch of bots buying and selling from each other. Um, and my conviction is, I actually think what we're talking about, consulting, and fractional executive leadership, whatever it is arguably one of the most future-proof of
Yes.
the opportunities. And we see companies like OpenAI, like building a consulting arm of their business, and I think the engagement started like $10 million or something,
Yeah.
just to be a part of it. And this is built on like Palantir's concept of like a forward deployed engineer to actually
Yeah.
like build it around the outcome. And so I'm curious if you agree with the idea of this as a
Oh,
future
100%.
proof kind of motion for
Yeah.
go to market execs.
100%. Because once you have 20 plus years of experience, what you really transition into is a business leader
Mm,
who happens to be specialized and know a lot about a particular function in go to market. That may be marketing or
yeah,
sales or rev ops, whatever it is. That's what actually the CEOs typically want. I want somebody who can be a business person that will help me think through and make business decisions, and not just create another ICP and a persona document, right? Not just
yeah,
show me a buyer journey,
right,
and not just spend all of their time in Excel spreadsheet or a dashboard to try to make the numbers up. Not fight with me for attribution, right? Like all those
yeah,
things that when you have a full-time job, that's what we do. That's all we do. If you
yeah,
really think sometimes, and we probably only spend, I look at my career and I wonder how you think about it. I think you end up spending probably 20-30% of your time at best at the creative, authentic, uh, really game changing ideas and experience and experimentation, and the rest of the 60-70% is spent on all the other stuff that really does
yeah,
not pertain to your role or job while you're there. It pertains to managing the teams, managing the
yeah,
people, managing the politics, and all of those things. So
mm,
in a way, it's really freedom from all those meetings and all
yeah,
those things, and it's an extremely high value for the CEO, because every imagine it, now the CEO will actually pay attention. They won't just be pinging you day and night. They would actually say,
yeah,
I got you on Monday we got to
yeah,
figure out our program, we got to do this thing. Those meetings actually have outcomes and you have
totally,
to show up to deliver, and you're not just pushing buttons, you
yeah,
actually are helping strategically. So you're, I love that. I never thought about it this way. I think you kind of helping position this in a way. It is truly a future proof. And guess what do you want to do after you have 20 years of experience?
yeah,
I think it's a question everybody should ask. They should take a day off and ask the question, what do I want to do
yeah,
after 20 plus years of experience? Do I want to go through just running another set of hamster wheels? And again, there's nothing wrong with it. There are
yeah,
great people, CMOs who have been with companies for 10 years, and so, and
yeah,
there's obviously there are all exceptions to all of it. And maybe you do like that. Maybe you do want huge teams and want to manage teams and all of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for
yeah,
vast majority of the people, and for the vast majority of the market, the most cost effective way to create the most value for the economy that we are in would be the fractional work,
mm,
because that's when you really squeeze 20 years of experience in a day, every single day for a
yeah,
company. It actually matters. It's really high value. I love your positioning around future proofing it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you were kind to let me access the course as well, and so I was digging through it this week, just preparing. And what I loved is one of the you listed like one of the ways that fractional go to market leaders can build their businesses
Yeah.
is brand is
Yes.
focusing on building their brand in this new kind of fractional context. I shared this in the opening, but my conviction as I'm thinking about my own kind of future is that building a human led brand, whatever that means, like we're calling it brand humanity, but this idea of showing up as authentic. Like this is a stream we're doing live. Like anything can
Yeah.
happen. My kids could run in here any second. Talking about emotional, showing up with messaging that is more emotional than just kind of robotic or functional.
Yeah.
Um, Creating events and experiences. All these things are really appealing to what I think is helps people stand out in the sea of sameness.
Yep.
And my sense is there are a lot of contractors in the world. Honestly, there's a lot of fractional executives, and so building a brand is key. Tell me more about that. Like, why,
Yeah.
in your experience, like what is it about kind of building a brand as a fractional executive that is so important?
Yeah, and let's qualify that also. Like I think as you and I have built and being part of helping build categories,
Yes.
the brand has different flavors to it. There is a brand that one might say you want to be an influencer, and that's not what this is about.
Right.
We don't think we're not definitely aspiring for all of the fractionals to be like, oh, you need to be influencer on LinkedIn in order to
Yeah.
get new business. It couldn't be further from the truth. As a matter of fact, if you most of the fractionals that are actually making 250K and more have about 500 to 1,000 people on LinkedIn that are following them.
Really interesting.
Most people who are super successful have they post like maybe once a week.
Okay.
So it has nothing to
Wow.
do with building a brand that has to stand out of it. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people who have 100,000 followers and they are very poor and very struggling
Mm.
right now to do anything because they are able to get a lot of eyeballs towards them, but people are not, like for example, I see a lot of people putting videos of TikTok videos on and put it on LinkedIn, and they get thousands and thousands of views, and then I look at, okay, let me see who's commenting, and they're trying to target go to market people, and the people who's commenting is a nurse from Philadelphia, and
Mm.
I'm like, you know, like this is not
Oh,
helping you at all, right? Like,
not at
so
all.
I think there's a flavors of brand that people have to understand. So what we have to look at is like, and I'll use Lydia as a great example. She only talks about what changes in the legal tech world, and
Hmm.
what has dramatically changed in the last few years. I don't know if you have paid as much attention to this as well, Anthony. I know you're in the space, so I'd be curious.
Hmm.
Followership doesn't matter anymore, because the LinkedIn post I used to do 2 years ago, it doesn't get as much attraction right now,
Right.
even though I have way more followers. What LinkedIn is doing is what YouTube and TikTok and all of them have done. They all are saying, what are you writing about and who is interested in it? And they're
Mm.
driving the people who are interested in it to that post.
Yes.
So they are doing the marketing for you. So as a matter of fact, for the first time, the platforms are actually, the algorithms, the AI is getting so smart. They're saying, oh, Sangram is writing about fractionals. So all of a sudden, my people who are coming and reading my post are fractionals, even though that's not
Interesting.
majority of the people who follow me. So as a result of this, we don't
Yeah.
advise anybody to be like, this is not about being an influencer. It's about knowing your niche, making
Yeah.
sure you just write about that, and do very clear, specific, direct message to people that you want to sell services to, not mass. Like there's no reason to do mass because AI can help you run mass DMs. This is not at all. This is
Yeah.
the exact opposite. Minimum audience, no ads, no spam, almost no AI bots to promote anything that you do, but you write once or twice a week on what you're trying to do and get in front of the right people that particular
Yeah.
message through either DMs or tagging them on LinkedIn. And that's all you got to do, because again, we have to start with the end in mind. All you need is 3 to 5 clients.
Yeah.
That is a
That's it.
very big shift in it. And so if you really start and thinking with the end in mind, for that you only need about 10 to 20 qualified conversations at the highest level, if you're
Yeah.
doing the basic math around it, and to have 10 to 20 great conversations. And this is not 3 clients every day, because you're doing
Yeah.
fractional work. It's typically, if you have 3 clients, you're good for 3 to 4 months, because most
Yeah.
clients will have you on 3, 4, 5 months kind of retainer on that one. So it's the brand building is important, but brand in the right niche with the right
Yes.
offer, what you're trying to do with them, because you have industry experience around that, and not trying to be an influencer by any stretch at all.
Yeah. Music to my ears. I have for 3 years built a company around I won't say making an enemy out of the algorithm, but certainly poking at it a little bit. And it's so funny being sort of offline for about 6 months and now coming
Yeah.
back online. I certainly don't want to be an influencer and hate the idea of it, but pushing content and getting reach, it's like a fraction of what it was 6 months ago for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
personally. And then I find myself like starting to get into a doom loop in my head of like, what am I doing wrong? And I even authored this post as a test that had nothing to do with my niche,
Yeah.
nothing of value to even contribute, but I knew LinkedIn would love it. I knew
Yeah.
it would play to the algorithm, and I did it, and I hated it, and it worked. And so it makes me think now of like, okay, starting to build a business again, thinking through how to go from 0 to 1. Like, I don't want to play that game.
Yeah.
I don't want to cater to the algorithm to push whatever it is. And so the idea that I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from what you're saying. It's like, okay, well, it's not about volume, maybe. And it's not about algorithmic games. It's about writing something of value in the
Yeah.
topic that you're building your expertise or communicating your expertise, and let the algorithm bring the right people to you.
Yeah,
That's
and
powerful.
what I've realized at the end of the day, one thing is still true, more true than ever before, is that email still works. Like,
Can't kill email.
like I mean, so ultimately, what you're really trying to do here's an example of what we do. Because we have the assessment, we help people put the assessment in their LinkedIn top nav and featured section. So
Mhm.
the point of everyone should be that when you write something of interest, people, what do you want people to do? Typically, they would, if you haven't helped them, they would actually go and check you out, your profile. And
Yep.
your profile should tell you exactly what you work on. So for
Mhm.
example, a free tip to everybody, I used to do this the wrong way. Anytime I will get a viral kind of thing, like for example, when I became the citizen, I put it on, and it became like,
Yeah.
like 100,000 people just immediately. It was pretty awesome, right? So it was one of the best performing posts, so I made that a featured post. And it was
Awesome.
so stupid because that's not why people would hire me.
Right. 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 Right.
So I shouldn't make it a featured fort. So when you go and look at your LinkedIn, go and take my LinkedIn as an example. Your LinkedIn should be your how people would work with you.
Mm. It's
So it
good.
literally is, the assessment should be there, and for us, we do courses to get people into this, like the one that I shared with you. So
Yeah.
every day there are like about 20 to 50 people at any given time take one of those three courses that we have,
It's awesome.
because they're coming to my profile. So my whole goal on LinkedIn right now, whatever I write about, is to encourage people to go check out my profile to see if they
Yeah.
want to do the course. And that's what my feature. I don't change my feature at all. From last 6 months, I haven't changed that at all, no matter how
Wow.
my other posts do. The same thing. So, and that gets people into my email, which allows me to then communicate at the frequency I want to communicate with them. And
Yeah.
the email is really Substack, which is again for $0. So every
Yes.
Friday they get a fractional freedom email from me from Substack for,
Cool.
so while they're on their journey. So that's my ending nurture, if you
Yeah.
will, about and encouraging to do it. So when you think about it, it costs me no money. Like most people, they can build their fractional business today without really costing a lot of money, but by just literally making sure they have the end in mind of what's my niche, who am I writing it to, encouraging people to come to my LinkedIn profile if they don't know me. And on my LinkedIn profile, it should be very clear how to work with me. If
Yeah.
they did literally just those three things, I hope somebody takes that and does it. They
Yeah.
would, or check my profile and just replicate something like that. That literally doubled the amount of things. So, and I'll give you one other example around this. I used to have 20 meetings, literally 20 meetings a week, telling people about this fractional thing in the early days, like in
Mm.
January. And I got so tired of it. I'm like, I want freedom. I'm talking about freedom, and here I am taking 20 meetings. Like, what's wrong with me? So that's why I developed that course. So what I now
Oh,
do
cool.
is tell everybody, hey, go take that course. They watch an hour and a half if they're interested in it. And in that, there are stories of like somebody like Sue who has changed she has used and she has changed it, and she's making now great amount of money around the using the
Mm.
fractional operating system. And then we put the commercials in it too. So literally my meetings went from 20 to now about 3 to 5,
Wow.
which is what I want.
Yeah.
And because all those three meetings that I get are people who have already
Yeah.
wanted, and their questions are around maybe the pricing or maybe some details around how to get started and is this the right time. So it's more of I'm getting to have a human to human conversation without a deck to sell
Right.
them anything. So I've not used a deck in like a year to sell
Nice.
anything, because the course is the new webinar in a way, and and people can watch it on a Friday night if they
Yeah.
wanted to, and set up a call with me on Monday if they're ready to start it. If not, you're in my nurture on Substack and you'll
Yeah.
get a Friday note from me. And when you're ready, we'll have the conversation. So, really flipping the funnel in a way of not trying to have more meetings on my table. I want to have the right meetings, not
Right.
trying to do become an influencer. I want people to actually go to my profile and just reach out to me when they're ready.
Yeah.
It's just a different mindset that I had to regain my own
Yeah.
understanding about what it looks like from a corporate where you generate $50 million pipeline to I want five. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
different.
I'm not going to let that flip my funnel reference slip either. I'm going to call that one out. No, it's so good, man. And what you're saying is validating something else I saw this week around profile, how people set up their profile, where um, I feel like maybe less so on LinkedIn, but maybe not. It's like former CMO of Gainsight, former CMO of Front, former whatever it is. Like, and this is who I've been. Not to say don't kind of talk about your expertise or your positioning, but like I found myself going back through my profile, not yet on LinkedIn. If anyone's watching this on LinkedIn, still work to do there, but to tell the story of who I am now and what
Yeah,
I'm focused on. Again, like talking about the heritage of the career kind of expertise, but at least maybe in like 180 characters or whatever it is, the we've grown accustomed to kind of just sharing our past versus like positioning kind of what our expertise is. And I find that that's valuable real estate for folks to like make that cognitive reference of who is Sangram,
absolutely.
what's he focused on. So it's
Yeah,
those little
I-
things actually add up.
it does. It does. And I think we have to ultimately we have to recognize that all of this, once you figure out what do you want out of it,
Mm,
because for example, I've seen people put it on LinkedIn, and this might be just helpful for everybody. Is like, well, I've done all this in the past, so what? Like it, it's more of like, do you want, is it an ego boost? Because for both of us, we have built companies and we have been in really, really fortunate
right.
positions in our back. Is that an ego boost that I want people to know? Or is it that because I've done that, here's what I can help you with?
Yes.
That's the connection most people don't help your clients make. So what happens is they come, they're excited, they see, oh, it's really cool, but they really don't know, so how do I work with Anthony now? Like, is
Yeah.
he gonna help me build category? Then maybe that's what, if you said, if let's say you want to do this is like a free, like, let's do coaching 101, right? If you were to come to me and say, hey Sam, like, here's what it is, and I know you so much and so well, and I was like, man, and if you said, man, I really want to do help other companies build their categories because that's what I've done, and I know I have a blueprint, I've written a book on it, I'm like, boom, all right, that's what you want to do. And if that's what you want to do, that's a super awesome niche. There are
Mm,
only a handful of people who could do something like that, and the way you have done it, and you, I'm sure you have learned a lot in it that you can teach. So everything on your LinkedIn will be like, I help build categories like I did at Gainsight. So it's
right.
about what you have done and what you can do, and you literally have either a video or a course or a quick guide to them, like, here's how I help you step by step. And
Yeah.
when they see that, they're like, yeah, these are the steps I need to build it. I don't have time to do this, let me just hire Anthony to help me do that.
Yeah.
That's the part most people are missing in the loop. They never
Yeah.
simplify it for people to buy from you.
Right. You're contextualizing your expertise and experience in this new delivery or this new
Right.
offering effectively
Right.
that you have. That's
Right.
great.
And a lot of us, I think there's a little bit of also, and I'm trying to take more of an empathetic because I've been harsh at this, in a way, is that when you have 20, 30 years of experience, there's a little bit of ego that creeps in where it's that, well, people should reach out to me. People should want to work with me.
My network.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't want to do a DM to anybody. Like, what do you think? I'm an SDR, right? So, there's a little bit of that comes into it, and that's fair, and it's worth acknowledging it. And I think you have to almost kickstart your career back in the
Yeah.
gear and get some momentum and almost look at yourself like I'm back into a little bit of a startup.
Yeah.
But always have to recognize the biggest difference is you only need 3 to 5.
That's
Like
great.
you
Yeah.
really only need 3 to 5, and therefore this is not a proverbial hamster wheel. This is
Yeah.
actually a life-changing freedom that one can truly achieve in some way.
So mindset maybe of humility as well, of getting back into kind of building mode. And you talk about mindset as one of the gating factors for folks. And what I loved in the content is you dig into this. You talk about optimism, or just
Yeah,
choosing hope over fear.
yeah,
And I mean, just scrolling the headlines on any given week, there's a lot of fear out there right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, there's fear that AI is going to replace knowledge work, or if you're graduating into the workforce, that might be too late or whatever. And again, I'm not saying I believe all of that, but there is fear. And so I'm curious how you talk to clients, how you talk to folks about choosing hope and optimism as you think about maybe just the uncertainty to take a
Yeah.
leap like this, or the uncertainty of, will I make enough money to provide for my family or whatever if I take this leap?
It's I forget who went through this really interesting thing around, there's a risk in everything. There's a risk in going to get a job and letting go, which is probably what a lot of people are facing, and will face. And especially as you get older, the chances actually astronomically goes up,
Well,
because you become super expensive.
yeah,
Um, so as a result of that, when you see that it's inevitable, I think one has to think about it from that perspective. Inevitably, I want to figure out a way to have a little bit more control over what's possible, and a little bit more influence over possible. If that's the case, then I think what really it comes down to is that everything is risky. There's no stopping of it. But I truly believe if somebody takes 6 months and says, you know what, I have 6 months of nest egg, I'll figure, I have my 401k, I've done that. Honestly, people should take 6 months of money from their 401k, because it's going to get taxed way more than whatever they're getting taxed right now, and it's okay to pay that 10% penalty. It's not that bad actually. Should
hmm,
take 6 months and actually just and say, you know what, I'm going to go all in for 6 months in this one thing, whatever that thing is, around fractional work. If they're
yeah,
really passionate about it, this is really truly the best time to be doing that, because the market has never been more open to having
yeah,
more fractional work at the executive level. So if somebody can say, you know what, I'm going to take the next 6 months, I'm going to give it all, I'm going to focus on it. And I believe, Anthony, like in my heart of heart, that people like you and I who have done the hard work, we know how to work hard. Like nobody needs to tell us, Anthony, you need to wake up to work. Like nobody has to do that. Like we know how to work hard. That's the one thing we learned.
yeah,
So the question is hard, not hard work. The question is not smart. The question is, can you believe in yourself?
hmm,
That is a hard thing to
yeah,
go do that. And if you can, then you owe it to give yourself that 6 month to see if it's possible for you to have a view into the horizon of freedom, what that looks like. And you
love that.
define your own freedom, right? It doesn't have to be like a freedom where it says you don't need to make $1 million. Maybe to you it's like, if I make 250K a year in different projects here and there, I that's a great lifestyle, because I get to do some other things around it. And you'll
Yeah,
be surprised that when you break 250 might sound a lot, but when you break down three clients paying you 10K a month or 7K a month, it actually is, you're literally making, with three clients you can make 250K. It is mind boggling when you actually start doing the math and what it looks like. So the optimism to me is not just like, well, it's going to be easy, or
hmm,
it's going to be, but the optimism is that if not now, and if not you, then who? And that
yeah,
that is a very belief question. Like, why not now? Why not you? And why not just give yourself a shot for the next 6 months? Like, what's the worst
yeah,
that can happen? You will end up either building a business, or you would
yeah,
actually go back and get back to, do something else.
totally. I think about that a lot. I'm like,
Yeah,
the worst thing that happens is you can go take a job again.
yeah, yeah,
So why not take the leap? Why
yeah,
not bet on yourself? I think that's really
yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Especially after 20 plus years of experience, when you know your stuff. Like
Yeah,
that's what hurts to me. Like personally, what hurts me is when people with amazing experience are looking for a job, in a
yeah,
way like almost like an entry level, and negotiating for like pennies on a, like I'm like, why? Like why are
yeah,
you doing that? Like you would not advise that if you were somebody else looking from outside in.
Now, I would
So
imagine if you're a recruiter or whatever, you're trying to tell kind of a career story for a candidate. I bet you would say choosing the wrong next company is net more like it's worse than taking a chance on yourself and starting a
yeah,
consulting practice.
yeah,
Like, that if you think of sort of just the linearity of a career,
yeah.
I would argue that that's probably a worse outcome. And it's all a bet. To your point, it's all you're kind of
It is a
taking a
bet.
chance for
It
each.
is a bet. And it's a risk. Like, and everything is a
Yeah,
risk, and job is a risk, obviously.
yeah,
And somebody said that, if you don't want it, let me tell you how bad risk is. Is like, you're not gonna. The life is living a life is a risk because it is so bad that you're not gonna get out of it alive. You
yeah.
know, so if you don't want to live, like,
I know.
it's a risk, no matter how you
Yeah,
look at it. But betting on yourself, I have personally never found that to be the worst thing in the world.
totally, totally. Well, on this note, I wanted to end on kind of a different topic. You and I share a faith tradition, and I think whether you're kind of wrestling with taking this next leap or into a fractional context or not, I think we're all, at least as I'm kind of having conversations like this one, asking some bigger questions these days on things like, what is my identity in context of work in a world where super intelligence might be on the horizon, and how do I think about purpose and meaning and these kind of deeper topics. I was curious if you're willing to share just how faith kind of helps you define meaning in the context of work and
Yeah.
in context of kind of broader purpose.
Oh, like, I think, I came to Christ in what was like third year of my journey at Terminus.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so I was never born in a Christian family. Faith
Mm,
wasn't a big part of my life. And so, and it hit me because I was a horrible co-founder, and also in the process I became a pretty horrible husband and a
mm,
father. Like, it's just where I kind of, in my mid 30s, I kind of hit that really deep valley, if you will,
mm,
on that. And when my wife found Christ and found a way of like living, and I was like, what is this transformative piece that I don't have right now? I can fake it,
mm.
but, like, I don't have it. And he knew there's a huge gap and hole in my heart around that. And that's when I think my journey started on understanding what faith is. And ultimately, right now, I believe 100% because of that. If I lose everything today, I know I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm totally
totally.
fine. As a matter of fact, even if I lose I hope it never happens, but even if I lose my family and everything like that, I know they will be in a better place. Like,
Mm,
it took me years to even say it out loud or think it out loud,
right,
because, it is, everything is devastating when you think about it in those terms. But
right.
that piece around that, I'm not in control of all of it. God has put me in charge of certain things, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that I'm the steward of that thing.
Yes.
Every money that I make, every dollar I make, like, it's a great opportunity for me to look at it differently than any other way. And it has just freed me, man.
Mm,
Like, Anthony, I think we get to pray with people when they're in tough times. Brian and I, both of us, have just looked at our next ventures, like, well, what are we doing? Who are we doing this for? Like, it's certainly
yeah.
not for making more money. Like, we can have just done it otherwise. But now it has a lasting purpose in a way. And I don't know if you can. Well, I don't know if there's a way to see. Well,
Yeah.
maybe. Oh, there you go. So you can see right behind. Um,
Oops.
I don't know. Did
There we
I?
go.
Oh, there you go. So you can see there's always a verse right here,
Yeah.
behind me. So depending on the camera, it will come up, and it opens up the conversation around faith with
Awesome.
people, and say, like, and it's a reminder for me to realize that I will be held at a higher standard, and I need to hold myself at a higher standard because of my faith.
Yeah. So beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing. And just these are the things we need to retain our humanity. And whether you're, you know, a person of faith or not, I think it's these deeper questions and this hanging on to this sort of like lack of control that we're all experiencing.
Yeah.
That I think is just such a important part of this next chapter of work, of our
Yeah.
professional lives, and
Yeah.
our personal, of course, in a much bigger and more important way.
Yeah.
Sangram, thank you so much for being a part of this. Folks can follow along on your LinkedIn profile for sure, and find out more information there. But anything else you wanted to add for folks?
No, man, I love this. I wish I could be like streaming this as well. So when I get the recording, I'll be sharing that as well, because this was one of the
Awesome.
most fruitful conversation I had today. So thank you for that.
Good. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone next week.